Hi, I'm Erica Quam of the Coaching Experience, and I work with athletic coaches to help you become the leaders that you're meant to be in all areas of your life. And what I want to talk to you today, or what I want to teach you, is a framework that I often teach athletic coaches to help them see what's going on in the big picture of their teams. So if you have been an athlete on the team, if you're a new coach, or if you've coached for more than a season, you're going to see some patterns that happen over and over again on your team. And there are certain things that you can focus on as your team is going through what I call these stages of team development. And so this can be a way that you can take a step back from the big picture of what's going on with your athletes. Maybe when you're busy and when you're overwhelmed and you're frustrated with the day-to-day, take a step back from all of that. Look at the big picture of what's going on with your team and the journey from the very start of the season to the last competition to your team banquet, all that good stuff. All of that is going to be contained in this framework. So just a little bit about the framework. On this side are going to be stages that your team go through every single year. These are the stages of team development that your team is cycling through. In the left side of the pyramid are going to be behaviors that you'll be able to observe from your team. And I'm going to make them really simple for you. And then on the right-hand side of the pyramid are going to be behaviors that you can focus on as a coach. What can you focus on when you're seeing these different behaviors from your team? Okay, so let's get started. The very first part, as your team is coming together, they're in what I call the forming stage of development. So when they're forming, you're going to see all kinds of things from your athletes. If you have athletes who are new to the team, they might be really nervous. So you might have some anxious, scared athletes. If they've never been a part of your team before, they may be nervous. You might have athletes who've been a part of your team for a while. Maybe they're anxious or nervous about their place on the team, or maybe they're really excited to get going. They're excited about the new athletes that are on the team. Basically, in this stage, what you're going to see from your team is everybody trying to fit in at the very start of things. So people are trying to fit in. And so as a coach, what you want to do is you want to help to build trust. And so help them feel like they're in a safe space. Help them come up with their own positive team environment where everybody can contribute and participate. Help them get to know one another outside of what's going on the field, in the pool, whatever kind of coach you are, whatever sport you work with. Get them to do some things that are going to help to get to know one another and trust one another outside of what they're doing. From there, you're going to go into what we call the storming phase. And the storming phase can be uncomfortable because most of your athletes probably don't like conflict. If you're being really honest as a coach, you probably don't like conflict either. And yet it's something that all teams, all groups go through. This is a normal process of the stages of team development or group development. And it's something that you go through to become a highly effective team. And so what you're seeing when people are in the storming phase is people are just trying to stand out. They were trying to fit in here and be part of the bigger picture, be part of the team. Here they're trying to be an individual, show everyone what makes them unique, what their special qualities are. They're trying to stand out. So for you as a coach, what you want to do is help guide them through this phase. It can be scary. People don't like conflict. And so what you want to do is help facilitate healthy conflict. So you're a facilitator. So you're helping them facilitate healthy conflict. And you're helping them navigate through these challenges, these occasions where people are trying to be an individual, and see how they can be an individual and still fit into the team, and have some ways that people can communicate when there is conflict that takes place, and not stuffing it down or just saying, you're not going to deal with it. Once you've built trust, then hopefully your team is at the level where they can bring up the hard things, they can bring up the hard conversations, and you can have you can do something about it rather than pretending that it doesn't exist. If you don't have a level of trust first, then probably people will just ignore the issues. They won't talk about the conflict. They'll just let it fester. Sometimes conflict can move into destructive conflict, especially when it becomes about someone on the team. If it's not a conversation about the issues, a lot of times it turns into a conversation about a person. So keep it healthy. So on one side of the continuum is constructive, and then on the other side is destructive. And let your team know that conflict is normal, and teach them how to handle conflict. The next phase that your team is going to go through is, once they've stormed, they're going to start to norm. So it's the norming phase. And in this stage, what you will see from your student athletes is they're conforming. They're seeing that there are some benefits to being on a team. There are some benefits to working together. Even though they've got some unique qualities as individuals, they're trying to work together for the good of everyone. And so what you want to do in this phase is you want to build commitment. And a lot of times as coaches, we try to rearrange the order of what we're focusing on. And so a lot of times coaches are trying to get their athletes committed before they've gone through any of these other steps. And I often hear from coaches, my athletes just aren't committed enough. They don't believe in one another. And so if you feel like they're not committed to one another, what I would often ask coaches is to go back and look at what might be going on. Do you have trust on your team? Or are there trust issues that you need to resolve? Do you need to get two athletes together and you become a mediator to help them resolve some interpersonal conflicts that might be going on? Do you need to get them to trust one another again? Do you need to facilitate healthy conflicts through some active listening situations? Give them some of these skills so that they can be able to handle things like that. And then once you build commitment, or once you facilitate this healthy conflict, then you can really get them committed to the direction that you're going, the goals that you have as a team. And so the other tendency is that we don't revisit the commitment later in the season when you've gone through these first two phases. Maybe you just mention it at the team meeting and then you don't bring up commitment again. Once you've gone through some of this trust building, some of the healthy conflict, get them recommitted. This is always coming back and revisiting this level of commitment that they have to one another, reminding them of the potential that you see in them, what you believe is possible for them. Really get them committed. And there's lots of ways that you can do this. Maybe there's even some sort of a team contract that you could sign or that they could sign and commit to one another. So once you're norming, conforming, build some commitment. From there, you're really going into the high performance stage. So you're performing. And in this stage, you're really seeing your athletes work together. The issues that might have come up early on in the season, people are rolling with it. They know how to handle one another. They trust one another. You're seeing the strengths of your athletes. They're contributing that to the team. Maybe there's some areas that are weaker areas and people are stepping up to fill those roles. So they're really performing. They're working together here. And so as a coach, you can focus on establishing some accountability. Finding what they're doing really well, finding where there's a gap of where they can be doing better to reach their goals, and help them hold one another accountable. Again, this is where coaches can sometimes get this out of order and be really frustrated that no one's holding anyone accountable on the team except for maybe you, the coach, and that feels like a big burden. And so it comes a little bit later on once some of these other healthy behaviors are happening. Once you have this trust, once you have gone through some bumps and some challenges with one another, once you've built this level of commitment, once you've built this commitment, then people will be willing to hold one another accountable. They'll see that it's worth it. It's worth taking the risk to speak up and say something. Because a lot of times people are afraid if they hold their teammates accountable that people will be mad at them, not like them, and that's because there's not a level of trust established there. Now, I say this like it's easy, and we know that things can be simple, but they're not always easy. So this is why it's a process. This is why your role as a coach is to help them see how they can do this and do it well and support one another. When you see someone hold one another accountable, that's a big deal. That's a really high level action from your athletes, high level from your team when you get to that level where they're starting to hold one another accountable. And then the next phase, what could be after performing? Well, there is the transforming stage. And at this level, some people might be moving on. And if you've gone through a season with a team and you have maybe seniors who are graduating, or you have some people that are moving away to be on a different team, or whatever the situation is, people that move on, that can lead to different feelings, different emotions from people. The team will never be the same because it's all about the people on the team. And if the people change, then your team has changed. And so as a coach, what you really want to be doing is elevating and celebrating. Talk about how unique and special it is to have all been together and have these different experiences. It's not just about what the scoreboard says. It's not just about the X's and O's. It's about relationships and all that can teach you. So elevate them for having that kind of transformational experience together as a group. Help point that out. Ask them how they're feeling about things. You know, sometimes there were classes of athletes that left, the seniors left, and then we came back together as a team, and there was a void. There was something that was missing, and rather than just move forward and pretend that didn't happen, ask your athletes, hey, you know, I miss so-and-so. I miss this class. They were really, motivational, or, whatever it is, and how do you all feel about that? Or maybe they're not sad. Maybe they're really happy if you had some challenging personalities or challenging people on the team. What can you learn from those situations, and how can you move forward if you're moving on together? Some people might be moving on their own. Sometimes you're moving on together. So this is the Coach's Matrix. Hopefully you learned something today, or you had some sort of an insight or aha to what might be going on with your team. I'd love to hear your comments, what insights that you had, any ways that you could apply this model to your team. Anything that you can do specifically in this area that could help build trust, facilitate healthy conflict, build commitment, establish some accountability, elevate and celebrate. I would love to have this conversation continue and hear some of your ideas of what you do with your athletes throughout the stages of their development.